What's up, guys? We got a fun video for today. I'm going to be walking you through some of our brand new presets for Line 6 and Fractal pedals. And these are all based on some classic amps and amp gain tones that you see right there. And we're going to talk more about that in a second. In this video, I'm going to be using the Helix Stadium to show off these tones and the presets. But like I said, the presets are available for the Podgo, the HX Stomp, the Helix Stadium, and for Fractal, the Axe Effects, the FM9, and the FM3. These are brand new presets that I designed for amps that utilize the amps gain for drive. So different than our AC30 presets, let's say, that utilize, stomp boxes or pedals for a lot of the dirt. These presets have some drive pedals in there, but they also have foot switches assigned to the amps gain that let you toggle from clean to dirty. So you can get a lot of these classic drive tones that these amps are known for. And with that, a lot of the wet effects in these presets are placed after the amp since we're using the amps gain. And they really sound awesome. A lot of the effects in these presets were inspired by a lot of classic gear that I have and love. 2290 rack delay, Echoplex, tape echo, some spring reverbs. We got rack choruses. So a lot of iconic staple effects I added into these presets, and you'll get to hear them in just a second. Let's do a quick overview of the amps that we're going to be showing off in this video. All of these presets are live right now on tonefactory.co, by the way. And also, if you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, whether you're new here or you've been watching for a long time. Helps the channel out, helps it grow. Let's take a look at the amps. So these are some absolutely iconic amps when it comes to how they've inspired music and the tones they are known for their amp gain. And we're starting out on the top with a 1971 Super Lead 100 watt. This amp obviously defined the 70s when it comes to rock and roll, classic rock tones. It can really do anything short of maybe the heaviest metal type stuff, but that's why you have a 5150 there. But it sounds absolutely awesome, great cleans, great dirt. Below that, we have a 1983 JCM 800 2203, another amp that really defined tones for a whole decade and era. So a lot of the 80s hair metal bands, use this amp, and it's a little more aggressive, a little more gain than the 70s Marshall. And we'll talk in a second about the cabs and IRs that are paired with each of these amps, because that's a big factor in these tones as well. Below that, we have the JCM 2000, which is a favorite amp of mine as well, that really defined a lot of tones of the mid-2000s, pop punk, screamo, rock, alternative rock. It's more of a modern Marshall gain sound. But absolutely iconic, I think, as well. Across the way, we got a Mesa Mark II-B from 1980. Fun fact, I believe this was the first amp that had channel switching built in. So it's a cool sound, different than Marshall, different than Orange, and, 5150s. Below that, we have a 1972 OR120, another absolutely iconic amp. And the vintage Oranges, the OR series, they have a different sound than a lot of the modern rock reverbs that have modern rock and metal gain. These, when you push them, almost get kind of fuzzy, and a lot of the grunge doom kind of guitar tones. People love the OR Oranges, the vintage ones, but absolutely iconic amp. Again, just a different flavor of gain. And below that, we have classic Peavey 5150, the iconic metal amp, metalcore amp. I mean, you can't beat that. Now let's talk about some of the cabs and the IRs that are included. So all these presets are based off of our Tone Factor XR IRs, and that's a big part of the tones that you're going to hear. And I didn't want to pull out the cabs for this video because they weigh a ton, and that would have been a lot of work and hard to fit in the frame. But I'll go ahead and talk to you about the cabs and the IRs that are included with these. So taking a look back at the amps, the top 1971 Super Lead includes its matching full stack of an A and B 412. The A cab's loaded with the G12M greenback, the B cab's loaded with the G12H greenback. And we have that full IR pack available, but we selected one IR for each of these presets. So when you buy these presets, you get a single IR that I dialed the presets to. And the IR for that one is actually a 50-50 full stack blend of the G12H and G12M greenback. Again, both of these are superb examples from the early 70s with the original pulsonic cones. So absolutely phenomenal. And below that, same thing with the 800. So I have the original JCM 800 cabs, and the top cab is loaded with the G1265s, which is probably, one of the more, is probably the most iconic speaker of the 80s for those tones. They also had a speaker, the G1280, that I loved, has, a little bit more, just a different EQ curve. So blended, they actually sound really, really cool. So that's what's included with the JCM 800 is a 50-50 blend IR of the full stack. So you're getting a true kind of representation of that full rig. Below that, the JCM 2000. For this amp, I chose one of my favorite cabs to pair with the JCM 2000, which is an early 2000s orange 412 loaded with vintage 30s from that era, which are my favorite vintage 30. Vintage 30s, the tones of those change dramatically. They're probably the most inconsistent Celestion. But this one specifically is my favorite vintage 30 speaker, and paired with that amp is just like pure, 2000s tones. It's awesome. The Mark IIB includes its original cabs, IRs from that. It had two 112 cabs, and one of them had the EVM 12L, and one of them had an Altec. So great speakers for that amp. They sound really cool. And again, you're getting a full stack 50-50 blend IR of those speakers in there. Below that is the orange OR 120 from 72. I have the original cab with the original greenbacks in that one as well. And the cool thing about those greenbacks, this is getting a little down the rabbit hole of speakers, which I didn't want to do in this video, but it's the heavy magnet, so G12H, but it has the 75 hertz lead cone of the G12M. So it's a really cool combination of getting the mid-range of the G12M, which I actually really love, and a little bit higher handling, a little bit more low end and top end of the H magnet. So really cool speaker and IR that's included with that. And then for the 5150, the only choice for a 5150, I think, is the Mesa 412 cabs with V30. So that's what you're getting paired with those. Again, all of those IR packs are on Tone Factor. So you can download those and get the complete packs and use them in whatever platform you want. But those are the IRs that I chose to pair with these amps. So you get kind of the full experience of what that complete rig might sound like. All right, enough talking. Let's pull up the multi-view and let's give a listen to some of these tones. I'm going to walk you through this Stadium preset. One thing to note is the Stadium includes a B page of Stomp boxes and more DSP than the Helix. So it has a few extra effects that are assigned to the B Stomp box page that the Helix doesn't have, but the Helix has everything you're seeing as far as snapshots and the stomps and the Stomp A mode. For the Podgo and the HX Stomp, those have different presets that sub effects in and out because obviously they are even more limited when it comes to foot switch options and DSP for amount of effects you can load in. But you can read the full details of what's included on the product pages, and all the core amp tones and IRs is all there. So you'd be stoked on it. All right, so let's start with the 71 Super Lead. This is the clean tones. Then we got Drive. Drive Plus. And then you have Lead, and Lead is where it increases the gain on the amp itself. So up until that point, it's just using Stompbox Drive. So what you're hearing there is the gain on the Super Lead actually crank up. Then you have a dry rhythm snapshot. Then you have a mod drive, which introduces some chorus. Hear how it gets like really wide there. Super awesome sound. So the next snapshot is mod lead, which introduces a 2290 ping pong delay with a phase 90 for some of that sweeping kind of lead effects a la Van Halen. And then the last snapshot is ambient. So even though these are amp gain based presets, you can totally rock this on a Sunday morning and, you know, play Lion and the Lamb. Really versatile preset. A lot of that is due to the 1971 Super Lead. Just absolutely awesome amp. Let's check out a different one. So the 5150, I did a little video on that, but again, just showing some of those tones. Skip around to lead. So again, more modern sounding gain and lead tones. One thing to note too with the Stadium, the Helix doesn't include this because of DSP limits, but if you click the toe down, you get a whammy on the Stadium. So something I forgot to mention that is fun. Exclusive to the Stadium preset. Again, because of DSP. Couldn't fit a pitch block with everything else. All right, so let's take a look at another one. Let's take a look at the Orange OR120. Hear how that sounds. Clean tones. I love how kind of big and round that sounds. Nice mids. So you can kind of hear there with the gain and almost like fuzzy nature, kind of what I was talking about. Great sounding preset, again, just different EQ. Let's take a look at the Mesa Mark II-B. Another great sounding amp and preset. Again, just kind of different mid-range, different top end. Let's look at the JCM 800. So coming from the 71 Marshall, you'll hear how this one is more in-your-face aggressive. And the 800 is such a versatile amp. Like people use, obviously, 800s in the 80s for the hair metal stuff. But then you also have you know, throughout the 90s and 2000s and even today, people using 800s for more modern gain tones. And it's just, it's more of an aggressive amp, but the way its gain is, it just leaves so much room and it's pretty clear. So it just fits into a mix really, really well. So here's the clean tones. So there you got the iconic 80s stuff. This one is brighter. It almost sounds more like Van Halen 1. So you got those 80s tones for days, but, you know, it sounds like mid-2000s pop punk, screamo, emo stuff too. Again, such an awesome sounding amp and preset. Feels really true to the actual amp. Last one we're going to look at is along those same lines, JCM 2000 Orange V30 cab. So more of a modern type of, you know, gain and tones to it. Now the Helix doesn't have a JCM 2000, so I went with the Friedman amp for more of a modern vibe, and I think it kind of nails a lot of the heart and spirit of the JCM 2000. So you can hear it's smoother sounding than like the 800, a little more modern sounding. All right, I'm going to give you guys a quick overview of the Stompbox mode. So switching over, this first page, Stomp A on the Stadium, is identical to the Helix. This is what you're going to get with the Helix as well. And for the HX Stomp and the Pod Go, these effects are broken up between various presets due to DSP and foot switch limitations. So with the drive section, you have these two switches, drive and drive plus, and those are assigned to drive blocks. And then you have an amp gain plus foot switch, and that increases the gain on the amp itself. You have a chorus, a phase 90 switch, a spring reverb, a plate reverb, and a hall reverb. Delay-wise, you have a tape delay, which is kind of imitating the Echoplex that I have, and then the 2290 is a 2290. So that's pretty self-explanatory. And then if you go to Stomp B, take a look at this. This is the layout here, which I'll walk through some of the tones. It has a few extra things that the normal Helix preset does not have. And that's, again, mainly due to DSP and what you get with the Stadium that's extra, which is cool, including a polycapo button. So you got a trem. Got a lo-fi effect. a 4-voice chorus, which is more of like almost a rotary sounding thing. A slap delay, which probably won't translate over this type of tone. And then a room verb. Say if you just want a little bit of like amp in the room ambience, you can turn that on. So that's what's included extra on the Stadium version. The Fractal versions of effects vary a little bit as well. But again, go to the product page and you can kind of read what's included with those. So if you like what you heard, go and download these presets now at tonefactor.co and tell your friends, share this video with them. Also, be sure to subscribe if you have watched this channel for a long time and haven't yet, or you're brand new here. Really helps me out, and I really want to see this channel get to 100K subscribers. That's my goal. All right, we'll see you guys in the next video.